You know, go speeding through that neighborhood, by the way. That's not.
Yeah, what they
not an
did,
issue there.
they sent a picture from someone's doorbell.
Yeah.
Someone didn't quite make the turn.
Oh, really?
Well,
I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying that probably isn't the place I would have picked. But nice to have it. I mean, I like it. I mean, it reminds people how fast they're going, so it's not a bad thing for sure.
let's see. Volunteers for the pledge, reverence.
Brian and I did it last time.
You will say it?
Just want to spread the joy. There you go.
You cannot touch them, right? Shauna, tell them.
Not,
Oh, okay.
not touch it. And then you just, like, I know I'm just saying it over and over again, but like we have no choice but to speak right into the microphone.
Right.
Or no one's gonna hear. But we are really working on getting that.
Okay, right there. Gotta be able to hear you. Exercise today.
Chris. Oh, okay. He's in the lounge position.
Chris had a plan.
I was gonna.
Very close and up front.
And I guess Lisa will tune in, right? I think she was going to tune in and be here for most of the meeting, but she may have to leave a little early too. Did anyone, if you've reviewed the minutes, have you seen any, do you have any questions about the minutes? So when we start, we're
Thank you for having the heat on. I skied today. 8 degrees when we started. 8 degrees when we started. So I assume our work meeting
Okay.
has started.
Yeah, so our work meeting has started. Anything you want to visit about before we start?
It's the fee schedule.
Oh, we are still working on trying to get more information on surrounding areas and parks. And so if you hear of any, we welcome you sending that information in, but we'll head out to you so you can decide where to go at. One thing's for sure, we have been pretty cheap on most items, pretty inexpensive.
Cheap maybe is not.
Yeah, maybe that's not a good, kind of a cheap word to use, huh?
We can hear him.
Have one item, that neighborhood where that, the canal's that issue. Christensen's, looked at last fall.
Oh, where the fence is tipping in?
Yeah,
Yes.
tipping in that canal, what that ditch longer shouldn't really be used. So, they're wanting to get something done, obviously this spring before, the water, that ditch doesn't have any water in it, but it have water in it. Is there a way we can dam that off or do something or what? First of all, who owns that fence? Does the developer own the fence?
The one that's tipping in? No, the property owners,
So the property owners in that subdivision own that fence.
they do.
Well, because I have a proposal that if the city would help, would actually alleviate, I think, the whole problem, since that ditch didn't have water in it, period. And that is, we wouldn't even have to bother the Christians. Their best property is there. We could actually just fill that full of, put a dam in it right there where it turns and goes
Right.
back to that property. And then we could just fill in that. There's only those two lots that's the issue.
Only the two north lots,
Two
right?
more lots.
That's right.
Where that canal turns, because we could access, I went down and looked at it again tonight. We could access it through that chain link side, either through that catch basin or from 5300 south. It just kind of dead ends right there. It's actually like a stub road. I don't know why it's that way, but it is a stub road. But it just ends at that fence. But that's where that canal turns and then goes off the back of those
Right.
properties. So I don't know.
So there's really plenty of dirt there to do that. We may have to pull a few trees out. But
I don't know how much. I mean, my proposal is just if we could dam it off for right now,
Yeah.
we can get in there and just come in off of 5300 or through that catch basin and just take that chain link fence, a section of that down, and then put it back up after we're done, and
reach over from west
something.
side.
Or if we even
Yeah.
had I don't know if the city's got any dirt available. That's what I'm thinking. We got a bunch of dirt here. If we
Yeah.
could just even take a truck over and just dump it, in that bank right on that corner, that would dam it off. And then, we could say, okay, because I mean, you got a couple problems. One of them is there's some critters that are destroying that one corner lot's grass. I'm assuming they're
Muskrats and that.
muskrats. Yeah, they're living in that ditch. It's not supposed to have water in it. So anyway. I mean, we would have had a battle with that one, even if we would have proposed that big pipe, because the developer would have said that ditch isn't supposed to have water in it. So, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's a possibility that long ago it probably did have.
Yeah, that might have been true.
I think they've kind of rerouted it since, but it's not helping. Like
Right.
we both witnessed. I mean, there's a lot of
Right.
water there.
So would the city be interested in helping out, bringing a load of dirt and dumping it on that corner?
Dam it off. I don't think it'd take a whole lot to do that. So
And then we could talk to Kelly, whoever the executor of that estate is. It's not Kelly, it's, I think, the daughter that lives on 5500. I don't think, Kelly's not the executor of that estate.
okay.
And so, I mean, I have a relationship with Kelly, and I can go talk to Kelly, but I'm pretty sure he's not the one that,
So would you mind just checking with them and see, that'd be, if that's agreeable to them,
right?
maybe go visit the homeowners again and see if,
Well, the homeowners are anxious. They're
I'll bet.
constantly bugging me about what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So if we had dammed it off, at least that would be one step in the right direction. And if Kelly's all right with us taking some dirt from that ditch bank and pushing it. I'm just saying, if we could come in from that 5300 side and we wouldn't even have to bother Christensen's at all. You know, we could just dam that off, and then that would, you know, it wouldn't be any water coming down there this spring. And maybe well, it's not going to dry up because it's getting groundwater, but
Right.
I mean, then they could work on, you know, doing some other things there.
Yeah, well, we're pretty sure there won't be much water. They don't turn their irrigation on there, right? I mean, we've seen that,
Well,
so.
I was just down there tonight, late this afternoon. There's water already in that ditch. There's probably 6 inches of water standing in that ditch.
Running?
No, well, it's halfway frozen, it's not a very good ditch. It needs to be cleared out again. There's, you know, trees growing in it and all sorts of stuff now again. So, I mean, now's a good time before somebody wants to dredge it out again, because that's what I think caused the problem the first time.
I think that caused the problem. I do too.
So I can reach out to Kelly, to Christensen's, and see if they're all right with us dumping some dirt in there.
Okay.
If the city is willing to help out with a truckload of dirt there.
I don't see a problem damming that ditch off
Okay.
at all.
So I was just thinking we could just take that fence down, drop a load of, you know, dirt in there, and just, it would be dammed off, and then we could go from there. But if we take care of those 2 lots right there to the north, nobody else cares. That, because you have that buffer. I think on the rest of those lots, nobody even has an issue with that encroaching on their property. But those 2 north lots do.
Everything south of the detention pond, they're all good, right?
Well,
That
it's
seems,
got remember we walked it, it's got that buffer of about 15, 20 feet, which they dug out there for some reason when they dredged that. So everybody else is fine with it. If we can take care of those 2 north lots on the back of there, then everybody else is good.
okay,
So,
that's,
okay, I'll reach out to Kelly,
okay.
Christensen's, and see if they're agreeable to let us leave. I don't want to, it's their property, so I hate to be saying, hey, truck just dumped a bunch of dirt on your.
Well, we're doing them a favor, because otherwise those homeowners are going to be after them,
They did
so.
have a problem when Beth was alive. They said that she liked those trees there because she did not like seeing those houses over there. That bothered her because she obviously lived there a long time. And so, but since she's passed, I think that, you know, that's probably not a discussion
Okay.
anymore. So I'll reach out to Kelly if you're all right with that. The city's
I
willing
think-
to help out there.
Yeah,
And
I
let's
think,
see if he's okay with that. And just so they know. And
I,
because we could I'll go take that fence apart, put it back together. That's not a big deal. The chain link fence. So,
yeah, I think that's a good fix.
okay, very good. I'll reach out to Kelly.
Violence that's been going on in the community, and also requesting the need of the sheriff's response. Have we as a city, I reached out to the individual that sent the email, and he and I are trying to connect, but I was wondering if the city has officially responded to him at all, or
What area was it?
looks like down 5,500, maybe down around 6,700 west, down in that neck of the woods.
Was I copied on that? Because I,
Well, and then 3 of us city council, so I don't know if it, where that main email goes, so.
500 south and like 6,700 west. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's what I'm looking at. Apparently there was a shooting on 4,000 south and 4,700 west. They implied that we should all be aware of that, but I don't know if that happened when I was,
Oh, that was in that's down my neighborhood.
how long ago was that?
Probably about
it's a little further west than 47. It's a little bit west of 5,100 west.
Hellbach lives. You know where Hellbach lives? Do you know where the
Oh, in that new neighborhood?
new one? Yeah,
Oh, okay, yeah.
that's where it was.
Nelson,
crazy.
over in the Nelson
It's
homes.
insane.
So that was like the last week of January, maybe? December? Oh, I never heard about it, so. Oh,
Crazy.
anyway, I'll forward this to the council as a whole now, but I don't know. They said
No,
they
the-
tried to make a comment last city council meeting, but the Zoom wasn't working or something, so they weren't able to get through, so.
Now, that one was taken care of. The sheriff was there. They found all the shell casings and that one was
Fortunately,
resolved. I'll say they.
fortunately, nothing was hit.
Yeah.
As far as any homes or,
Yeah,
I think that's the one where they went out about 2 in the morning and found
yeah.
someone going through cars or. No, we never like to hear about like that in the city, and the sheriff, they're aware of those kinds of things. One on 6700 West and on down west of the park where the rodeo grounds are, I know, I'm aware of that one. I don't know what that is.
That would be almost, is that Corey Green's road?
Yeah, it's
That would
Yeah.
be his corner.
down, I think, in that neighborhood. It sounds like there's a group of citizens that feel like they've reached out to the city, they've reached out to the sheriff, they've reached out to dispatch. It says, and I'll send an email to you guys, but there was a complaint on a bonfire and the dispatcher basically said, we don't think it's a big deal, send us a picture. And so that sounds like there's a group that's frustrated that maybe they're not getting a response from our law enforcement or,
Okay.
well, it kind of jumps around. So
You forwarded it?
I'm getting it right now to you guys.
Okay. All right.
Got it, Cindy, on the original one, but I'll send it again because
Yeah, I didn't get it.
But sometimes it gets buried in what I'm looking at, so if you resend it to me, that'd be great.
So one thing I just want to bring up before the meeting, just a reminder, the next general plan meeting that the Wasatch Regional Front will conduct is on March 9th. We will have one meeting before that, and I'll remind you, but I'll send you all an email with the links that you can watch that if you so desire. So March 9th.
We do have Sherry Bingham is here, and this will be kind of a positive note for this work session. It's been pretty positive anyway, but
So we submitted all the grant applications and they come out and meet with you one-on-one, and then they go back to their committee. And so I received this email today, realizing we haven't heard back on all of them yet, but this was the person that I met with our major grant, which was the pickleball, basketball, and parking lot expansion. Hi, Sherry, wanted to let you know that your pickleball, basketball, and parking lot expansion application has been recommended for funding. The next step is for the Weber County Commissioners to approve the recommendation on March 2nd. It's unheard of for the county commissioners to not approve what the committee votes on. So I think based on this, it looks like we're going to get our major
smiling
grant.
underneath.
I
it,
know,
just so
yeah.
I think
but
we
I
all
got
are.
this.
It's not showing. I'm very happy underneath my mask right now. That's
I
pretty
know,
awesome.
I got this. It was like
That is
almost
awesome.
4:00, and I thought, oh, I need to
That
go and
is-
let you know.
Cool.
So I haven't heard on any of the others yet. It was a pretty intense meeting with the Park and Recs. It was encouraging and said that they felt like most of the projects should be able to be funded. So I haven't heard on that yet, or on our arts and museums, which was our electronic message board and the signs, the historical signs. But this sounds like, and they do ask you if you will accept partial funding, which you always have to do, yes. But we had applied for $239,875, So I think, it paid for the pickleball courts, and there was enough money if you saw this anyway. So I think it'll be great. I think this sounds really good. So thank you for your support, and I'll keep you updated when we hear on the others.
Great, great, great.
So, okay.
Thank you, Sherry. Well done. That is a happy note.
well, so too.
Can we, any other, before can we figure out how we want to do this tonight in this meeting, unless there's anything else? How we want to go,
Because I was trying to figure out what the best route was to review
Yeah.
it as well.
yeah. So maybe if we decided in this meeting, unless there's something else. Anything else? So I have,
So I don't know if anyone has, as we've read through that, if you've highlighted some things or.
How about we just take a page, the first page, and say, does anybody have any, because I
Sure.
don't think we want to read the whole thing, do we? It's-
Well, I don't think there's a
Beyond-
need.
I just had a few sections for clarification and
That's-
probably a couple that,
We could just turn the page and say, does anybody have any objections on, or any questions on that page? And if not, we'll turn it and just go.
that's a good
Okay.
idea.
that's probably a good idea. Just scroll.
Yep.
I
the
think
questions you.
that's a
Because
good
I have some
idea.
pages I had a highlight on and some I do not.
I barely got through some at one time, trust me. Whew.
I mean, we could even go to Section 3 if you wanted to.
Yeah, the reality is it's not that.
Yeah, it's not that
tough
intense.
reading, like,
Well, we could see how far we get then.
I didn't realize there wasn't anything else on the agenda, so we could do a lot.
So
a
I
lot more.
didn't actually go through Title III.
That's just all the fees.
I didn't either, but yeah,
He's saying if we have time, we could just kind of read,
start through it. Okay,
I don't have a written copy, so I'll be following on the online version. So refer to it at my section numbers. That'll help me in following what you're doing.
Okay.
I'm on the computer as well.
Section 3, if we didn't notice it,
What's
Ask-
that?
did you, Reed, did you hear that?
No, you're going to have to talk a little closer to those microphones. The only one I can hear is me.
oh, if we haven't noticed, section 3, can we go through it tonight? Or do we have to notice that for,
Well, you could go. You mean chat? You mean Title 3?
yeah.
You can look at it. You probably can't make any changes, but you're not going to approve any changes tonight. Anyway, the process would be you'll come up with the things you want to change, and then we'll accumulate those over a couple or maybe 3 meetings or 4 meetings, and then do an ordinance to make the change. You don't want to have to do an ordinance after every meeting.
Right, okay,
Sounds good.
thank you. Yeah, let's just
Right.
let's just see how it goes, and then, if it goes fast, I agree, we might as well look at it.
Sure.
Let's try it and
So-
see.
Is that why it's supposed?
So Reed, can you hear me okay if I talk like this?
I can hear all of you as long as you get close to the microphones.
Okay.
And I think Jolie probably's got the same issue. I haven't heard from her, but I noticed she looks like she's on.
Give the mic.
Okay, so Lisa has sent a message saying
I remember that.
Lisa's
actually.
having a hard time with her Wi-Fi. So she's trying to get on. Did you? Okay.
So the backstory, this ditch is on that subdivision where Sean Buse used to live, where the ditch that comes up from Christensen's down and across the back of those houses. It's not supposed to have any water in it, but,
The drain, like a drainage.
well,
ditch
I don't
or-
know what it was originally. Nobody seemed to know, but come to find out, Christensen's own the ditch and the land it's on. And so the problem is, somebody had dredged it out along the way a few years ago, and there's those last 2 north lots that comes across the back, and they're gonna lose a tree. It's gonna fall, and including the fence, is gonna fall into that ditch. So they're like, hey, who's gonna pay for this? We don't wanna sue the city, you know what I'm saying? Because if the fence falls in, I don't know whose fault this is. Probably have to sue Christensen's really, but they don't want to. I mean, they just want to see if they can get it solved and kind of find out there's no water supposed to be in that ditch, period. So it's only when they don't, if somebody turns the water out early or whatever, they're not supposed to do that, obviously. It comes down that ditch and it's not supposed to have any water in it. So the citizens are like, if it's not supposed to have any water in it, why do we have that ditch there? Because they're going to lose a big tree that's going to fall in probably this next
Right,
year, probably,
right.
if nothing's done, so.
Property owners
Can you
responsible for
do a
maintaining.
resolution against? the
Well, now we have an ordinance where if
city? Be nice.
the ditch is on or adjacent to the property, then it needs to be piped. And I think this ditch is what kind of brought that ordinance around. So we don't have problems like this anymore.
There was a
But-
there was a buffer there initially behind the fence. There was about probably 10 or 15 feet of dirt initially, but somebody had since has dredged that corner out, and they've just got too close to the fence. In fact, you can see the bottom of the posts, the fence posts. They're well, just because the water's washed it away. And
Yeah.
So now you're going to have a problem, a huge problem, and they're going to that whole tree is going to fall into that ditch, including the fence. Kind of a bad deal. And nobody knows who actually dredged it out. Of course, nobody knows anything about it.
There was a time when that took care of all the wastewater coming from Wilson Irrigation, but they've since today, they've rerouted everything down 4,700.
Right.
But I'm glad you're following up on that, Brad.
Yeah,
I think
we're
that's a good
Yeah.
solution and an excellent starting point to at least
Yeah.
get it dammed off so that
Yeah.
dry up and
Yeah.
start to work on it.
Yeah, for sure. You're right. That email is pretty all over the place.
Yeah, I talked to the gentleman and I was meant to go down and visit him. I ended up with a family thing that popped up. So I'll try to get with him this next week. Let's see if I can get more detail.
Though it's probably with the sheriff's department more than, you know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
mean, that's,
Well, and if it
Great.
is, then we can have, Ryan at least give that feedback.
well, absolutely. But I'm just saying that if it's an issue with the law enforcement, that's what it is. I mean, we can't really step in. Really, I mean, we could put some pressure on, obviously, the sheriff's department, say, hey, could you take better care of us for sure? It's good feedback to have, I think, but. I was just trying to get to the bottom of it and I couldn't get there.
Well, I have 7 o'clock, so we could call the meeting for the Hooper City Council order Thursday, February 8th, 2021. And we've had council member Osler volunteer to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and after that, council member Paulson reverence.
Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear kind Heavenly Father, we gather before this evening at our city council meeting and ask for thy blessing upon us as we discuss the needs of our community. We would ask you to bless our nation and our state and our community as we continue to fight through this pandemic, that those that are sick or ill, that might be suffering, might receive some relief. We bless that those health officials that are trying to come up with solutions might be blessed with insight in order to end this catastrophe that's been facing us both locally and globally. We're grateful for the moisture that we've received this week and ask you to continue to bless us with moisture so that we might be able to supply our crops and gardens and lawns with needed water. We're grateful for the bounteous blessings we have, and I say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Well, we'll just move right on to the minutes. If you had a chance to review those and have any questions or any amendments that you might have. If not, we would entertain a motion to approve those from the minutes from February 4th, 2021.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilmember Osler,
I'll second.
Second from Councilmember Paulson. Hill, I'm sorry, if I don't see your mouth move, I'm not sure where it's coming from. Okay. A second from Councilmember Hill. Is there any other discussion on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. So Lisa is connected with us.
Aye.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, I guess each of you have a copy of the January financials. I don't know if you have any questions on those, but we would just encourage you to review those. So at this time, Shauna, I don't know if there's any citizens that would have signed on for a comment, or we don't see any. So we will close the citizens' comment portion of the agenda and move right on to our city business, which the council is going to review and discuss the Hooper City ordinances. And tonight on the agenda, we have titles 1 and 2 listed. And if time, we may move to review some of title 3. So as we go through these, thought we would just look at each page. If any of you have any questions or something that we need to have clarified on the ordinance, if you maybe could just tell us the title and chapter and paragraph. I'll turn to that.
So I'll start with 1-1-3 CA under quorum. Talks about there being 4 members of the council shall constitute a quorum for transaction of business. So that includes the mayor, correct? So we've always before said 3 council members for a quorum and 4 with the mayor. Is that?
That's how I understand it too.
I had that same question, but I think as I read through it, because our council is a 5-member council, as far as councilors, the mayor counts as a council person as well, which makes it a 6-member
6.
council.
Yep.
So they're basically saying that 4 of the 6 out of those 6 have to be here.
Okay, that's how I understood it too.
Which would make sense.
Yeah.
You have a voting body of 3.
Right. And then the only other thing in B, just below that very last sentence, additional meetings may be called as necessary by the mayor or 2 council members. So that's outside of the regular Thursday schedule. Any time we want to have a meeting, we can. Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. As long as it's properly noticed.
So that was probably what you were going to mention, Sean, as long as we have time to properly notice that meeting.
Which is 24 hours, right? Yeah. But 24 hours is the minimum, right? Per se. Unless it's an emergency. Which I guess falls under a different clause.
Had something back in the very first, 1.1. And that is, I'm actually over 2 districts. And it's not worded that way, and I don't know if this makes any difference, and maybe it doesn't.
District 1, 2, and 3, and we actually have
We have 5 districts,
1,
and
2, 3, 4, and
I'm over 2 districts. Does that need to be reworded, or is that all right the way it? I'm not offended by the way it's worded, but do we need to reword that a member can be over 2 districts?
How many districts? There are 5 districts?
Correct. Yes.
So why not just create the districts to conform with your council seats?
Yeah, we could do that. Just enlarge the districts, you mean to change the boundaries of them?
I think originally there was.
Yeah, the only reason for a district is to decide who votes for a council person, I would think.
Just
So
create
combine
3.
the 1 district, combine the 2.
did, I think, when they reduced the council down, right? Because the council each had when it was 7-member council. Is that right?
That's why there were that many districts.
Well, but if there were 7, there were 2 at large and 5 people representing districts, I guess. So probably the districts should have been combined when the council members changed to 5.
Whatever we need to do to clean that up, I think that we probably ought to be representing.
So is that something that we have to have a motion for in that read, or is that just something we can clean up in-house, these boundaries for the districts, or?
Well, if you want to have one person represent 2 districts, we'd need to make a change to this section. If you want to combine districts, so you end up with just 3 districts, then I think you just do that. You'd want to vote to do it, but I don't know that your districts are outlined anywhere by ordinance.
We just have to put that on the agenda for next meeting to make that vote.
Make those, to combine those districts.
That seemed like that'd be the smart thing to do.
Yeah, then you wouldn't even have to change this.
Right?
That wouldn't have to change it.
I presume Shauna probably keeps the records of who lives in what district. And so once it's approved, she just make that change.
Look like, and I'm trying to find this, Ryan, you might have it. I did better if I would have brought my book. It also talks about on the minutes, so historically, right, so the agenda, if I can find this.
What section are you in?
1-1-3.
1-1-4 on meetings. On the meeting agenda, down at the bottom of G, I think. I think that's the area.
Talks about 10 items.
Well, it talks about I'm looking for the agenda. How come I lost it? I hate when I'm trying to find something, I lost it. So there's a comment that makes a comment that the mayor's in charge of the agenda, but that 2 council members can add
Yes.
things to the agenda as well. Same thing as the meeting, so.
That's back on C. Mhm. Other items may be added to at the discretion of the mayor or 2 council members.
I didn't know that, so that was.
So if that's the case, who does those 2 council members submit that item to? Shauna or the mayor?
I mean, it's gonna come through one of us anyway. So if you directed that to the mayor, both of you wanted it on here, then you would let me know. Or, you let me know, I let you know.
It's interesting that particular item, I was talking to another council member from another city, and they said that they had some issues with some rules in regards to that. And they finally just said, anyone can put anything on the agenda at any time. And they said, what was interesting is they thought it would blow up, and at first it did, but then after that, they said it was pretty calm. But I think our rules is pretty clean. Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense.
All right.
I had a question on E in that same section. Not with the wording here, but just how we do public hearings. I know we talked before about the need to only have a public hearing for one item, either in the planning commission or the council meeting. And the need didn't, we didn't need to entertain public comment in both meetings. Is that how we want to do it? Or how do we feel about that? Do we allow the public to
Well-
comment in our council meeting as well as the planning commission? Because some come to one and
Originally,
one
it
to-
was just at the
Right.
commission.
Right.
And then thought some of the citizens felt like they attended these meetings hoping that they may have something to say, and then they didn't ever have a chance. So we did change that where we started having public hearings, public comments at the first of a year ago.
Yeah, the mayor changed that on the agenda when he became in office. And I think, I guess my 2 cents for what it's worth is that I really enjoy hearing the public comment. I think the one thing that I've noticed is that we've allowed the public to start to control our meetings at certain times. And I think we need to make sure that order is followed when the public's giving their comments, because it gets out of hand and gets very personal sometimes. And I don't think comments are meant to be personal. I think comments are meant to be, there's an issue with X, Y, Z, let's deal with that, and just make sure we stay, with some form of decorum. And I myself have probably lacked decorum, so I cleaning that up a little bit in our meetings would be better, I think.
I was on the planning commission when that was changed, and we would say you still have the opportunity to speak at the city council meeting, and then they didn't, and it was,
So all of you still feel
I think it
okay
should
with
be.
that as long
Yes,
as it's
absolutely.
controlled?
Yep,
And
absolutely.
we couldn't agree more with that. I think other citizens that are here as well want to see it controlled.
That's why, I'm a huge advocate of it starting before the meeting, although I know it does tie up some time on certain issues, but I think, a well thought out argument helps me determine my position as I'm trying to evaluate the facts with whatever we're facing. So I appreciate it.
And the last thing I had in that section was J. Talks about when we take a roll call vote, and it says anything involving resolutions, ordinances, city finance, or anything else that creates a liability for the city will be taken by roll call. And I don't think we're doing that all the time. Like, for example, when we vote on the budget, when we have our budget meeting, that's not a roll call vote. Or, you know what I mean? So if we're doing it by definition from J, we need to remember to probably have more roll call votes than we do
Isn't anything that has to do with money is a roll call vote? Isn't that what it is?
finance. Mhm.
Well,
Or any
anything
liability.
or anything
Any
that creates
liability, too.
liability.
Probably need to clean that up.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good.
My next point that I'd read, sorry, I need to sit forward by the mic. Shauna will slap me with the ruler. On K, following J that we just talked about, when we talk of rule of procedure, I think we've been, I think this actually outlines it pretty well, but I wonder if, so it talks about parliamentary procedure, right? So we follow loose rules of parliamentary procedure. My question to the council, and I posed this back when I was elected, I wonder if it would benefit us as a council and as a planning commission to have some basic discussion or training on parliamentary procedure a little bit, so we can understand why a motion or how a motion's made. What are some basic rules? I don't think we have to get super in depth into Robert's rules and dive in, but I know sometimes you go places and it's like, I make a motion and it's like very, very loose. And sometimes I think it's okay, but I think with a little bit of training, we could probably come off a little better spoken. I don't know.
Yeah, I would compliment the council, though. I really think when you've made motions, at least from my perspective, it's always been clear, and there's sometimes there might be a question as to how we amend a motion or things like that. But as far as what you initially, I compliment you on doing that. I think it's clear, but I think that would be helpful. If there's something that we do in a meeting that we may not do routinely, it would be good to know just how to properly do that.
I think
when our meeting is a parliamentarian, is that you, Reed? Would that be your role?
Probably that would be my role. Generally, my view is you've done a pretty good job of living by the rules. Technically, some things, for example, if you want to amend a motion, normally you'd have to do that formally. You'd have to argue and then vote on the amendment and then go back and vote on the amended motion. Generally, what you've done is the person that made the motion accepts the amendment as a friendly amendment, and you just go on. And that really is not quite proper, but that certainly works well for all of you.
I can work on just finding some like additional training, and there's probably a lot of videos that I can just send you, you can watch separately, or
Okay.
we could definitely. Add in. That's-
I think it was just basic,
I
just
think-
something basic.
I agree. I think some training wouldn't hurt, for sure. It's find
Especially as
out,
we
you
get
know.
new council members, you get new people in, they might not have.
Even
any
if we just, even if we can clean it up, I mean, it's good, to, you know, but everybody on the same page. I think it's smart.
I think even for planning commission members that are new, they don't fully understand, hey, we make a motion, now what? Now, what are my options when we make a motion? You know, amend, deny, approve? You know, what are the other things we can do?
Yeah, it'd be good. Yeah, Sean, maybe if you can find something.
I learned a lot just reading through section 1 and 2. So it's all beneficial.
Section 2, moving on.
Okay. Title 2.
So we're going to Title II.
Yeah, we've completed it.
Everybody's okay with the rules of ethical conduct?
I marked one. I'm not sure why. I'll have to read it again, see why.
Oh. No, how come we skip that? Did we skip that?
Well, we've covered conflicts of interest. We tried to do that
So,
in the meeting, so I
I have a question. So, in Mayor, this does affect you, but, so I've heard of elected officials running for multiple, offices that, so like, I've heard of elected officials that maybe live in a certain city but that will run for the fire board because they want to be able to control the fire board or help control the fire board that supports the city or some different things like that. And it seems like you can get yourself into some sticky situations where you represent multiple interests. And so as I read through this, and I know this has come up, and I you know, I still wonder how, when Hooper Irrigation is a utility that services the citizens of our city and has heavy weight on development and affects all the things that come into our city, how those two positions can be maintained. It seems like there's got to be a conflict there.
I really don't think there's,
One's a business, right? And one's a government.
well, I think all of us serve on boards, other than being on the council. You know, Central Weaver Sewer Improvement District. All the members of that board are either, Ogden City has the highest representation because they actually have not only the mayor, but a council member on there. All the others are mayors that represent every city. If you were to look at other irrigation companies, you'll find that Roy City, for example, irrigation company that services them, they have so many board members on there. And that's really so that the city is represented. And I think it's a lot the same. We have others that serve on the mosquito abatement board, right? We have Hooper, you know, and all of us have different assignments.
Those are assignments. Those aren't paid board positions. There's a difference between the two. An assignment is assignment given to us by the city of Hooper. We as a city of Hooper haven't assigned anyone to, we do have an irrigation representative that goes to irrigation board meetings, but not to be on the board. Those are two different things, I think. And that's why I get confused if we commingle that. And we don't have to have a discussion in depth, but it was something when I read through that did flag my question on
Where was it on?
if there's a conflict.
Do you have any input on that, Reed?
Yeah, there are certainly conflicts of interest a lot of times. You remember when Chris Cave was on the council, he had conflicts often because his firm prepared most of the engineering documents for the subdivisions. The rule, though, is that if you've got a financial conflict, you shouldn't vote and shouldn't participate. But less serious conflicts, you just have to disclose and make sure people are aware of that conflict, and then you can still participate. So I would say if it's a board, you could probably disclose that you have that conflict and still serve. Now, if you were the director of the water district and making 80,000 a year, I think it becomes more of a conflict then. One where you probably wouldn't be able to participate in anything relating to the water district.
I just want to make sure we're not putting ourselves liable with that type of situation, just because.
I think that the main issue is disclosure, both in this rules of conduct and also in the state code.
Well, and paragraph number 4 describes that. It says, dealing with financial interest with Hooper City, unless the transaction is disclosed publicly and determined to be lawful. So, like you said, Reed, it's just disclosure, I think.
These rules, I think, are helpful for you to read just for your own information. Probably a good idea to give a copy of those rules also to the Planning Commission members, I would think.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments for Title I?
I'll just mention one more thing in paragraph E, political activity. It's interesting that council seats, planning commission seats, even the mayor's seat is not party affiliated. You know, we're not Republican or Democrat. And thank goodness, because where I work, there's something called the Hatch Act. And if I had to identify with a party, if I had to say I'm a Republican, then I couldn't serve on the city council because of my job. So it's nice that we're unaffiliated without political party with what we do.
Yep, I had those same type experiences with my other job with the Hatch Act. So, but fortunately, they've kind of changed that. Okay, are we ready to move to Title II? Okay.
Yep.
Title II that we just did the surplus equipment thing.
So too.
I was like, oh, hey,
It looks like we were on track with that, right? That's when I went through it, I felt the same.
seemed like we got advised correctly, Shauna. Thank you.
And I don't know if you guys got an update, but Wasatch Cowboy Church did come and purchase like 120 of those chairs. So,
Oh, wonderful.
Great.
Shauna, maybe talk a little bit about how this purchasing ordinance interacts with the state procurement code and how you deal with those issues.
well, there's a lot here. And hopefully, in general, knowing that we pass our state audit every year with flying colors kind of proves that we really are working within the limits that we've set. But then, no, so the state procurement code does have a list of limits and things that we can adopt or we can follow. They also have like state value contracts that we are able to go in and find and use for our own procurement, knowing that the state's done all the work behind that, and they're able, and so we're able to trust and know that we're getting the best value for the tax dollars that we're spending. And though, but we don't necessarily have to completely comply with state code for procurement. It's the best practice that we follow, and then those are outlined in this ordinance. So you'll see, like, we'll have limits for purchasing that you'll see there, and when we meet limits over outside what we can do just in the office, you'll probably note that we come to you for approval on those invoices. Then things over 25,000 go out to bid, and then you'll notice like those will be on your agenda. You'll award those. Kind of move through that. We haven't really you know, there's other things like you'll see that you'll approve contracts or agreements, like our garbage agreement, things like that. Those are just things that we pay monthly. So even if those limits are higher, you've already approved the contracts. But all those are reflected in the financials that you receive. You know, other than that, we do our yearly audit, which is pretty intensive, and they pull about every invoice imagine, and they go fine tooth everything. They re-go through ordinances that we have to ensure that we're in compliance, proper protocol and policy. That's all reflected in the report that you.
Who performs that audit, Shauna?
I cannot remember the name of our official auditor. Sorry, I don't have that with me. But we sent that out to bid about 2 years ago. And I can't remember the name of our auditor. It's like, I think it's Gilbert and Richards or something like that, I think.
So you're talking about the financial audit, or do you have an audit on procurement?
Oh, no, just the financial audit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the firm.
My first thing that I had actually was in section 2, chapter 4, was the first thing that I had any questions on, and that was on the Historic Preservation Commission.
I have that marked also. But that's a long ways off. Are we complete with everything before that?
Well, if anyone had something before that, I did not.
I just had a thing on 2-3-2 on bonds. Talks about each council member having a $2,000 bond covering them, and then the mayor and the treasurer, 50,000. And at the end of that, it says, the bond of the mayor shall be approved by the council at the first meeting after a municipal election. And I don't ever remember having a bond.
We
vote.
used to have to do bonds up till like a few years ago. And then there was some change and clarification in the state that allows us, instead of bonding for each individual council member, we increased one of our liability insurances, and that the state has allowed that to be covered instead of bonding everybody individually. We don't really bond.
Revise that bond portion of the code?
It probably could be revised just to say whatever the state statute.
I think that's a good idea to probably rewrite that and say that it's covered by your liability insurance for the city.
And so just back up on that a little bit, in 2-1-13, payments to be made from bond proceeds. I didn't quite understand that either. So it's like payments made from the proceeds of any bonds for any services or supplies shall be made following approval of such expenditure by the council. We don't have that. We don't have bonds anymore. We don't.
Well, you have insurance, which is essentially the same as a bond.
Okay.
That bond is actually on 2-1-13. That's a financial bond that we would issue a bond to pay for something, is it not?
I didn't.
That's not in regards to
I
an
didn't understand that.
insurance
That's why
fund.
I
That's
marked that.
Yeah, I believe that's more of like an
it's a
insurance.
fiduciary type fund.
Like a
that-
bond that
different
we
things.
would issue.
Two different things then. Okay. Okay. All righty.
Now, a couple of things to keep in mind that we will want to change in reference to the state ordinances as they're referred to in our code. In many places, those state code numbers have changed. For example, in Chapter 2, Disclosure of Campaign Contributions and Expenditures, it refers to the state code, but the state code has now changed the numbers. So we need to go back and make those changes. They're technical, but they probably ought to be changed. So Shauna and I will work that out.
I had something back a little bit. Who is it talks about the mayor or is it his designee? Who is that?
Like the mayor pro tem.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, a lot of them,
That answers that question. I didn't.
or his designee. Or Shauna. Well, whoever the mayor designates, right?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, say whoever he says.
On to preservation.
So we do have a historical, or we have had a historical preservation commission. I mean, it's been long time and they don't meet anymore. They don't discuss anything anymore. So it's something that's valid if you wanted to have it. And, you know, if it's in here, it's probably worth kind of again, we have had it in the past.
Like whoever, put this code together back in the day thought it was important. Do we still, I feel like with what Sherry's working on with the grant and trying to designate, key historical places within inside our community, that maybe that's where this board could come into play is designating some of those things and helping preserve some of the historic items in our community.
Well, that's kind of what I thought too, especially where we've applied for grants that affect that. Could we change some of the parameters of this? Is it necessary that they meet twice a year? I don't know if it needs to be this. They have
5
two
versus-
commission members shall be professionals as defined by the National Park Service. I mean, do we need to be,
I'm not sure.
yeah, should we
Yeah,
change some of those?
We're gonna
parameters?
want to probably really check where it's a historic preservation commission. There are some real reasons and stipulations as to like why
Why it has
they're
to,
listed that way. So I could try to look into what the requirements are for an actual historic preservation commission. And then you guys can decide if that's something you want to keep or enroll it into like our, committee or something like that.
okay.
I looked at the statute that's cited there for the state requirements, and it's been repealed. So I don't know that there is anything called a historical preservation commission anymore. So my thought would be you maybe ought to just rewrite the whole thing to provide what you want and not worry about what the state code says.
I'd make that an agenda item down the road and work on that for sure. If there's a demand.
I like it when council says, don't do what the state says.
When council says what?
Our council says, don't do what the state says.
Oh,
Don't worry about those guys.
Well, if it's a state mandate, you have no choice, but this is not.
Yeah.
Well, that's the note I had on that. It is that it's something that we would probably like to do, maybe should establish. So I think that's what we'll plan to do.
With our own needs.
But yeah, we'll
Right, with our
rewrite it so
community
it's
needs,
Right.
specific for us.
I think that's great.
Maybe have a little subgroup that redoes that. Some of those requirements, as you mentioned, don't make a lot of sense. National Park Service, what does that have to do with anything?
Yep.
Well, along those lines, since we will probably be involved with Fremont Island and involved as a city with them, I think this might be a good example of a place that we could get involved with. We do have a member of our city that, that works for the state and is kind of assigned to Fremont Island. So this is something that we could work on. And I have a really good picture of someone pointing at the cross out there that we could kind of headline this preservation group with.
There's enough mud on his face, you can't tell who it is, though.
Yeah.
We can close up.
All I had in section 2. I don't have anything else.
So that's something for the future, look into creating some kind of a committee or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, you might create a little committee to rewrite the provision, and then whatever they come up with, you ought to create.
Okay, at this point, want to move to Title III. As I mentioned, I didn't review this.
I haven't read any of it either, actually. I haven't looked at it at all.
I haven't read Title III for many years, so it might not be productive to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the way we did it tonight went fairly smoothly. We could push that to, just like we
Okay.
said before, let's do 2 chapters or 2 titles next.
Unless you want to do 3, we probably could have,
Yeah.
I mean, if we don't have anything else on the agenda, 3 of them's not going to be too many. I mean, I don't think. I mean, that went pretty
And
smooth.
for the future, we'll have 3 titles instead of just 2
Oh, that's
like
true.
tonight.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that's,
4 is pretty big though.
Yeah, I was gonna
Could be.
say.
Depend on the
four-
size of the title. You might take a look at that.
Right.
And then 5 will probably need,
Okay, so let's just, if 4's big, let's just do
3 and 4.
3 and 4,
Three and
yeah.
4.
That's a good idea.
So along with 3 goes with the consolidated fee schedule, right? So if there's anything we want to look at on the fee schedule, kind of talk about that in conjunction.
Add that as part of the discussion for the agenda. Look at the consolidated
right.
fee schedule. At least we can have discussion on it. We don't have to make a motion on it per se, but at least talk about what it looks like. So do some research, maybe on that, each council member to come back with maybe what we've seen or what we feel like would be.
and I can send out a full consolidated fee schedule. Send that out for you guys. And
That's all the impact fees and everything.
yeah,
else,
that's going to be everything that the city charges.
Okay.
No, we're held to that schedule. Everything that we charge is in that schedule, been down from that. So it's going to be subdivision fees, there's going to be legal fees, there's going to be all the public works, business licensing fees, cemetery fees, all that. Park rental fees.
Great.
Are you doing an analysis of impact fees as part of the general plan review?
Of impact
Oh.
fees? Is that what you
Yes.
said?
Uh-huh.
We haven't listed that as a study, but it probably ought to be one.
I
Is
think
that
if you want to raise those fees, which you probably do, you'll need to do a study to do that, to be able to justify it. And there are other impact fees you may want to consider that aren't there at all. And if so, you might want to take a look at how you do that. It's not something you could just put on the agenda and adopt. You've got to have a study done to justify the fee, and that's a pretty comprehensive process. So I guess my thought is that ought to be maybe something that the general plan review group looks at right up front. And if they want to make changes there, get that process started, because it'll take a number of months to be able to do the study and justify the changes or the adoption of a new fee.
So actually, in our next meeting, we're going through and making some suggestions. Would that be?
Yeah, but that's just to like civic rentals. He's talking specifically about impact. So like
Oh,
our,
okay.
our sewer impact fee or
Oh.
our park impact fee. And those are major impact. You do legitimately have to have a study done to say, this is how it's impacting our city. This is the justification. So that's outside
That's
of like
diff-
our
okay.
park rental fee or what we charge for copies.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, well, I think that went real smooth in reviewing these 2 titles. Is there any other business, city business? We don't have any other business on the agenda. Have there been any citizens' comments that have come in, or any that are in-house comments that anyone has? Okay, seeing that there are no citizens' comments, we'll close the citizens' comment part of our agenda. And,
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
okay, we have a motion to adjourn and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.